What's up, guys? So, one of the first cars, I guess the first car that I ever owned was a 73 Chevrolet Nova. 1973 Chevrolet Nova. And it was my grandfather's car. I don't know where he bought it, when he bought it, how long he owned it, or whatever, but he owned it. 73 Chevy Nova. It was a Nova Custom 2 door. It was not the hatchback model. It was the trunk model. Uh, it was white. Originally, it was white with a dark green vinyl top on it, and then it had dark green interior. Now, back in the day, as a lot of you know, cars had different color interiors from what you find today. Mostly today, you'll find black interior, which I like on a vehicle, gray interior, and sometimes you'll find like a tan color interior. But that's about it today. That's about all you see. But back in the day, it was pretty common to have green interior, especially in the 70s and in the 80s. You'd have green interior. You'd have burgundy or maroon interior was pretty popular back then. You don't see that as much nowadays, unless it's like a custom interior or something. Like I said, most of the time nowadays it's going to be black or gray, primarily on your interior colors. Maybe tan on some of them, but yeah, it's my first car, '73 Chevy Nova Custom, 2 door. Now it came out. I think it had a 305 engine in it, 305 V8 engine originally, just a little 2 barrel carburetor. And my grandfather actually passed it down to my parents, and they drove it for a long time, several years. And then when I got my driver's license in the we'll say in the early '90s, uh, it was passed down to me, and it kind of sparked a love for Chevy Novas. I wound up owning 2 more Novas after this one. Now, of course, the one you're looking at here is just an advertisement. It's not actually the one I had. I could not find a photo of the actual 73 Nova that I had. Of course, again, like I said, most people didn't have cameras and cell phones, obviously, and stuff back then, so I didn't have any pictures of it. I wish I did. And I might have one somewhere. I just haven't run across it yet. But eventually, I took that vinyl top off the car, and I never had the car painted professionally. I did a little uh, rattle can job on it back in the day, and of course I left it white, but I took the vinyl top off and painted the top of it black, so it wound up being white with a black hard top. The original vinyl top wound up peeling and cracking and just really looking bad. So I just ripped it off and painted the top of the car black, which actually looked better anyway. The cloth interior over the years wound up getting in pretty bad shape, so I wound up going to a salvage yard locally, and I think it was a Pontiac Ventura. They were basically the same thing as the Novas, and I found one in a salvage yard that had white leather seats in it. So I bought the white seats out of that car and put them in that car. So wound up having, of course, the dash and everything was still green, but wound up with white seats, and I liked that better than the green seats in it. And they were in pretty good condition as well. So uh, that changed the interior up a little bit on it. Let's see, what else did I do? I let a friend of mine. We'd swap cars, and I'd drive each other's cars and stuff. Back in the day, growing up, cruising and stuff. And a buddy of mine jumped in my car one evening and took off and was cruising around a local Sonic, and a girl was backing out of the one of the stalls at Sonic and backed right into the driver's side door of it. Just put a huge ass dent in the driver's side door. So I wound up going back to that same salvage yard, and I wound up buying the doors off of that. I believe it was a Pontiac Ventura. I bought the doors off of that car. They were blue, but I put them on there and wound up rattle canning the doors white, and it matched it up pretty good. Obviously, it wasn't perfect, but it matched it back up. So I had some doors that functioned on it. And I don't know how, it's just one of those things that over the years, I actually wound up keeping, I guess it was the passenger side door. It was still pretty decent. And I wound up keeping that old door. And like I said, guys, this was back in the early 90s. And I still have that old 1973 Chevy Nova door. It's got a good glass in it. And that thing is heavy. They really built the cars back then. They weren't fiberglass. They weren't plastic. I mean, it's a big steel heavy door. And like I said, oddly enough, I still have that door sitting around. It's out behind my shop building. And I don't know why I've held on to it all these years. Maybe just the nostalgia of it or something, the memories. But I probably need to just go ahead and sell it and get it out of my way. I have absolutely zero use for it, and I'm sure somebody could use it. So I may go ahead and sell it. But overall, it was a decent car. I mean, for a first car, and like I said, it kind of sparked a little interest in the Novas for me. I did, like I said, own two more Novas. I owned a '74 Nova. I'll get a video on that. And then I owned a 75 Nova. Now the 75 was 73 and 74 were the body style, what you're seeing on the video here. And then 75, they completely changed the body style on it. It's kind of like a fastback style, and some people didn't like it. I really liked the 75. I think 75 up to 79 was pretty much the same body style. You could get them in a hatchback. I think you could get the 73 and 74s in a hatchback version as well. I never did like a hatchback version of any of the models. But I did have that 75, and that 75 was my favorite, and I'll definitely do a video on that sometime. And I do have some photos of that actual car. The 74 Nova I had, I don't think I have any photos of it, but I'll find one on online, that's close to it. It was a real pretty red color car. It was pretty from a distance, I'll say that. It wasn't a perfect paint job, but it was a decent looking car, and I kept it for a while. But the 73, being my first car, I enjoyed it. I drove it for a few years, and then it got passed down to my sister. So it was actually one of those cars that you hear about that it gets passed down from grandfather to parents to me, and then to my sister, and then eventually it was sold off, and I don't know whatever actually became of the car. I know we sold it to a guy that traveled with a carnival or something like that, if memory serves me right. And like I said, I don't know whatever become of the car. But another story I think about that car is my grandfather, when he had it, the original engine let loose on it, so he wound up having the engine swapped in it and put another 305 in it. And he had it in a shop. I think it was somewhere down around Ripley, Tennessee, the mechanic shop that was putting the motor in for him. And they had it inside the shop, and they, as they were in there working on it, they were sitting in the car with the driver door open, and somehow or another it wound up getting knocked into reverse, and the mechanic reversed clean out of the mechanic shop. Of course, he had that driver's side door open, so when it backed out of the shop, it hung the door on the edge of the shop door and just pretty much ripped the door off of it. So he actually had that door replaced, or they replaced it. And then, like I said, I wound up replacing the doors, both doors. I went ahead and replaced both doors on it with those blue, I think, like I said, Ventura doors. But anyway, first car, 1973 Chevy Nova. What was your first car?